It's October 7th. It's 6:30 in the morning. I'm on a balcony in Modin sipping coffee when I heard the explosions all the way from Gaza, and I realized that war had started. This is David Tal. This is the Balagan Connection. It is now 2025, but it's 6:30 in the morning in Modin, and what we're going to do today is go back and relive, reconnect, and reevaluate what happened on October 7th, 2023, what happened then, where it happened, and to a certain extent, what's happening today and how it impacts all of us. So join me for this October 7th journey. We're going to get in the LBJ. We're going to drive all the way down to the Gaza border. We're going to look over the Gaza border, stop at a couple of places, connect a couple of things. And just to put it here in context, the main object of this video is to stand with Gaza in the background and pray to God that this will all end as soon as possible. So this is David Tal. Let's get moving. So here's an important stop on the way to anywhere. Not the McDonald's. Yes, we do have McDonald's here. But over here on the right is a basic aspect of the Israeli way of life, and that is the local aroma right over. So we're going to get an aroma coffee before we hit the road. So join me. These are the train tracks that run across around the Gaza Strip. Let's see if I can find a place with a view and talk about what's going on. So we're here. Me, LBJ, bunker right in front of me, and the Gaza Strip right behind me. The city of Sderot is at literally 500 yards on this side, on the other side of the railroad tracks. And this is the northeastern corner. And I put up a map here if we can try to do that. This is the northeastern corner of the Gaza Strip. I'll mark off exactly where I am. And I've come here this morning to connect to what happened here 2.5 years ago and to connect to what's happening now and hopefully to connect to what's happening in the future. For all of you watching this with me now, please pray. Please pray. Just so you get a little bit of the feeling, there's a military warfare, political warfare, diplomatic warfare, social warfare going on here right now. I can hear the airplanes above, and if you listen closely, and I can hear the artillery rounds going out. There's an artillery battalion, there's an artillery unit right over here on this side, And every once in a while, you hear the explosion on this side, the thump on this, the explosion. Well, it's a little bit sharper, and then you hear the impact on the other side. And if we can kind of pick it up, you might see some of the plumes of smoke. What I'm trying to say is the war is still being fought. The Hamas fired 2 rockets into Israel this morning, 2 rockets out of Gaza and out of the areas that we have agreed to let them keep for the meantime, have fired 2 rockets out of Gaza into Israel, meaning that they're showing the world that they still have the capability to fire rockets. 2 soldiers or 3 soldiers were killed last week, meaning it is a war, it is a battle. And Israel has agreed to go on the defensive, meaning everything that you hear is when we identify a force that is going to attack our forces inside. And let's remind everybody, as of the 7th of October, Tuesday morning in Israel, there's no ceasefire deal. The ceasefire was hinged on the return of the hostages. And the Hamas is starting to kind of mess around with the return of the hostages. So this is the situation that we're talking about. And there's a patrol going behind us right now. This is the situation on the ground right now. But after we go through all of the social, political, military, I can feel it. There's a spiritual war going on. I'm going to tell you, I was literally spiritually attacked driving down here today. My heart was unquiet. My soul was yelling. Something in me was saying, don't do this. Don't connect to this. Don't share this. And I'm still here in order to share what's going on. I just now heard an impact inside Gaza. So this is David Tal. This is a Balagan Connection. And we're going to talk about all these different kinds of warfare, and no better place from literally right here. Let's start off with the physical warfare that we're hearing. The Gaza Strip is like a box. The Mediterranean Sea, you can see behind me. The northern part of the Gaza Strip, that's in this direction, is where Ashkelon is. By the way, the power plant that supplies electricity. Okay, if you can see the smokestacks behind there, if not, I'll show you a picture later on. Okay, is the power plant that supplies the electricity for the Gaza Strip. It's in Israel, but it supplies the electricity. So the cable goes across, but you know, it's part of the absurdity of this whole situation. As far as the war is concerned, Israel has conquered most of the Gaza Strip, and the last area that has not been completely conquered and not been completely cleared out is a probably about a 4 on 7 mile block that actually is Gaza City itself, that you can see the outskirts literally of right behind me. Gaza City is the biggest city in Gaza, and it is where we think the biggest tunnels and facilities are, and we believe that's where most of the hostages are. Israel has been on the verge of conquering Gaza City for the last 3 months, ever since we understood that the Hamas doesn't want to reach an agreement. And slowly, we've been moving into Gaza City, blowing up the high rises inside Gaza City and going through the tunnels underneath Gaza City to find our hostages, to finish off Hamas. Hamas is feeling the heat, is feeling that it might completely lose, it might have to surrender. And that's why they agreed, and let me make this clear, they agreed that President Trump would put a plan on the table. Last week, President Trump came out with a plan for finishing the war in Gaza, and as a result of the finishing of the war in Gaza, opening up the bottleneck that will allow peace in the Middle East and the whole Middle East all lined up together for new Abrahamic Accords, and he will get the Nobel Peace Prize in any case. So that's what came out last week, and he said to Israel, you have to accept this plan. 21-point plan. If you go back to some of the videos in the past, and I kind of stress out maybe the basic outline of the plan. Number one, the minute the agreement is reached, 72 hours, all the hostages are released. Not some of them, not this, all of the hostages. All of the remains of the hostages that are not with us will be given back. 2, Israel will withdraw. And he drew a map with a yellow line. See if I can show it over on this side. That indicates where Israel will withdraw from. And that will be the line. 3, they open up the Rafah crossing. Hamas wants to open up the access to Egypt. By the way, sorry, really hot out here. open up the crossing from Egypt to allow them to bring in people and allow them to send out people. Number three, four, I think, amnesty for the Hamas. Israel agreed to that. I'm not sure the Israeli military slash intelligence has agreed to that. But again, I do believe that anybody who had anything to do with the 7th of October is a dead man walking, but that's a whole different dynamic. And release of something like 2,000 Palestinian prisoners from Palestinian areas, and a cease of the war. And here's what President Trump said, and here's the main factor, the main issue that we're talking about. He said that the Hamas cannot stay in control of the Gaza Strip at the end of this Balagan, meaning the Hamas will not be in control. Israel has stated that we are willing for an Arab technocratic government to step in for in the meantime, and later on, some kind of combination of Arab forces, even included maybe the Palestinian Authority, to govern Gaza after the Hamas is gone. Here's the hinge-pin. Here's the problem. Here's the bottleneck. Here's the knot. Here's whatever you want to call it. Hamas is not willing to give up power. Hamas is not willing to step down. Hamas is not willing to give up its weapons because it is considered or considers themselves a resistance movement. And without weapons and without governance, you cannot resist anything. Hamas's role is not peace in the Middle East. It's not even peace in Gaza. It's not even a good life for the people in Gaza. Hamas's calling, role, dynamic, whatever you want to call it, is the destruction of Israel. It's resistance against and the destruction of Israel and the killing of all the Jews. By the way, I'm stressing Jews, not Israelis. There's a whole dynamic in that. And we're starting to see more and more hatred of the Jews wrapped up in criticism of Israel spreading through the media world right now. So that was the original plan. Israel said yes. Israel said, okay, we're willing to stop the war at this point. If Hamas gives up its weapons, leaves the Gaza Strip, and we'll find an international organization. Trump said he wanted to be the head of the organization, and Tony Blair, the prime minister, the prime minister of the idea was that the Gaza Strip will be run by an international government, Arab powers, different players in that. But mostly Trump was going to stand at the head of this international committee. He wanted Tony Blair, the former prime minister of England, to play a role in this. And this was the main agreement. Israel doesn't like it, but said yes. There's a lot of people in Israel, by the way, that says we should agree to everything no matter what. I don't agree with them, but that's a whole different story. Israel said yes. And President Trump made Bibi Netanyahu, in a very, I think, humiliating way, go and apologize to the Qataris for the attack on the Hamas leadership in Qatar. Very interesting. I see it as similar to the attack on Al Qaeda when they took out bin Laden in Pakistan. But again, two ways to look at things. But that was the idea. Hamas said no, and then it said this: we agree to release the hostages, but we have other problems, and basically their main problem is giving up power and giving up weapons. That's the situation. But that was the situation, the last negotiation. That was the situation in the beginning. Hamas is playing for time. Hamas is doing the Arab merchant thing. I don't believe they can give up the hostages. I don't think they will give up the hostages. I think President Trump thinks he's got this ability to force everybody. But the Hamas is going to be the one that finally decides what is going to happen. In the meantime, the fighting is still going on. I can hear an F-35 up there right now. Well, I think it's an F-35 or maybe an F-16. You can hear the explosions. I can hear the outgoing rounds from the artillery battery over here, and I can hear the impact rounds from the artillery battery over there. What I'm saying is it's still going on, and Israel is saying, while we don't have an agreement, until we have the hostages, we don't have an agreement. And Hamas is saying, I will not give up the hostages until you agree to let us live to tell the tale. And here is the $1 million issue that nobody really realizes or nobody accepts. The Hamas doesn't want a ceasefire. The Hamas doesn't want peace. The Hamas wants to hurt Israel. The Hamas is saying, we will not give up our resistance against Israel for anything, because any agreement they agree to, they've basically given up the resistance. Now, this is a little bit more complex than most people realize, because the Hamas is the last Arab standing in the fight against Israel. It's the last Arab standing in the fight against the good. It's the last piece of evil that hasn't given in yet. Remember, in 1947, when Israel becomes a state, by the way, voted on by the United Nations, okay, a two-state solution was agreed on in 1947 and actually voted on by the United Nations. Israel said, yes, the Arabs, all of the Arabs, not only the Palestinians, all of the Arabs said no. No agreement, no state. The problem is not a state for the Palestinians. This problem is from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which means no Jews in Palestine. That is always been the problem. That is the problem now. They dress it up in different colored keffiyehs, but that problem still stays. But most of the Arabs have given up along the way. Egypt, Jordan have a peace agreement with us. There was another round going out. Listen to it. Boom. Egypt, Jordan, and it looks like Syria and Lebanon are willing to sign non-fighting agreements. Saudi Arabia, the Arab states are willing to sign on some kind of Abrahamic Accord. Everybody's willing to give up the resistance against Israel. The thing is that the Arab world has not given up. So even though the Saudi government is willing to negotiate, the Egyptian government is willing to negotiate, even the Palestinian government in the PA and the West Bank is willing to negotiate, the Arab people still believe in Palestinianism. I don't know how to say it otherwise. It is this belief that they're going to get a Palestinian state, this dream that they will be able to push Israel out. And even though the rest of the Arab world has given it up, the Palestinian people and a lot of the Arab people have not given up on this dream. And then come along the Europeans last week in the United Nations and said, you know what? We're going to stroke your dream. It's like telling a child that he really is Superman, that he really will be able to fly through the air. I mean, again, it's fine when somebody wants to believe that, but when responsible adults tell somebody who's 35 years old that he's Superman, there's a problem. That he will get his Palestinian state, that he will believe in this Palestinianism. People get on a boat, go on a flotilla full of teenage comic book fervor, that they're going to save Palestine, they're going to save Gaza, they're going to break through the blockade, they're going to put on their colored keffiyeh on their pink dyed hair, and they will save the world. And the more we entertain these people, the more we let them think so, the more we tell the poor Palestinians living in Gaza back there, it's only a matter of time, the more I think we are not fulfilling our role as responsible people. It's time to give up the idea that the Palestinians are going to have their own state instead of Israel. They have to be convinced that it's not going to happen. Now, you know, I know, everybody here knows that's not going to happen. The Bible says it's not going to happen. Paul says it's not going to happen. Jesus says it's not going to happen. I don't know why we allow them to think that it is going to happen. And now in the war, that's the physical war, that's the political war that's going on. the social war is kind of picked up. If you can convince the Palestinians living over there that where I'm sitting here is their land, you can give them new energy to fight the fight. But you and I both now know that the land I'm sitting on belongs to Israel, was promised by God to Israel, is part of our heritage. And even if you don't want to go the biblical route, I'm going to go the historical route. This is my ancestral homeland. I am a Jew from Judea, the hills of Judea. I can see them right there. Okay. I am a Jew from Judea. This is part of Judea. This is my ancestral homeland. This is where I belong. No, I agreed. I've been kicked out for a while, but there's always been a remnant here, and we have come back. So from even a woke, progressive, indigenous idea, this is our homeland. But we keep on telling them, or other people keep on telling them, no, it's not the Jews' indigenous homeland. It's your indigenous homeland. The Bible says it's our indigenous homeland. It says very clearly what's going to happen. And that, I think, is what is on the cusp right now. We're at an intersection. So the enemy has changed tactics. Now, this is a tactic that was well known, and the tactic is this: separate the ancestral homeland from the people, separate the chosen people from the promised land, separate God from the Jews. If you do that, this is not my ancestral homeland. If you do that, I'm not part of the biblical story. If you do that, the whole world sees me in a different way. That is what we're seeing playing out. And Tucker Carlson gets on TV literally and says that the Jews are not connected, that my DNA, for lack of a better word, my ancestral connection, my heritage, my biblical promise does not exist anymore, because that promise has been replaced by the promise to all of the Christians. Now, don't get me wrong. Christians have a promise. You and I both know that when you die, you're going to go to heaven. That is a promise that God made. He gave his own son in order to fulfill that promise. But that doesn't mean that he goes back on the promises that he actually made to other people. And the way I like to explain it is that the Bible says very clearly that we as Christians are grafted in. I would say adopted. So when a family who has sons and daughters, that might be good, that might be bad, that might be acceptable, that might be nice, okay, but are always the sons and daughters, when they decide to adopt somebody, that adopted son will become a son just like everybody else, will become part of the story just like everybody else, will be accepted as a son. But his adoption as an adopted son does not cross out, does not disconnect the son's heritage, the son's promise. And what I'm trying to say is, you don't throw out the old when you accept the new. And what I'm trying to say, that even if a family adopts a child, that doesn't mean that the other child is not loved anymore. Even if the other child goes wrong, even if the other child does bad things, even if the other child does not fulfill the promise, he never loses the promise. That is what's being played out. Tucker Carlson, everybody else is starting to say it's all the Jews. One, they are the problem. Two, they are not the promised people. Three, we should not be supporting the Jews. Now, don't get me wrong. The United States supports Egypt. The United States has supported the Iraqi government. The United States has supported governments all around the world. The United States of America rebuilt Imperial Japan after World War II and rebuilt Nazi Germany after World War II. The United States has been supporting its allies down to the allies, but now there's a problem. We shouldn't be supporting the Jews. Our veterans need money. We shouldn't be sending money to Israel. Yes, your veterans, the veterans in America need money, but that has nothing to do with political, military, and I would say strategic support that the United States of America does for its allies all over the place. But here's the thing. Nobody talks about the support of Qatar. Nobody talks about the support of other allies in the United States, the Jews are singled out. That's the war that is going on. On one hand, I'm going to blame the Jews for everything. On the other hand, I'm going to try to disconnect the promise from the Jews. If I can do that, everything turns upside down. In fact, if I can do that, that is the ultimate Balagan. And that is what Satan is trying to do. And he's playing it out right here behind me. So that was an overview of the situation. And like I started this off in the morning, I felt like the spiritual warfare was really, really tough on me today. And there were all kinds of things that kind of connected it. And like everything, there's the technical problems. The microphone that I was using on the hill that you just now saw ran out. So I'm on another hill with another microphone, hoping that this sound will be well enough that I can actually use this. But here's what I want to connect, because the sun going down in the backdrop is the end of the 7th of October for Israel. The 7th of October is a critical, pivotal, turning point date. What happened on the 7th of October 2 years ago was something that changed Israel forever. It is like the Yom Kippur War, and it's going to go down in the list of Jewish events that we're going to be commemorating. I don't know, we might even make a celebration like we do other celebrations. But what I'm trying to say is something deeply changed. And we were reminded, and here's how I'm seeing this as an Israeli, we were reminded on the 7th of October that we might think we're Israelis, we might think we're different, but we are still Jews. We were reminded that we are hated because we are Jews. We were reminded that the world is to come up against us because we are Jews. Now, it's not by chance I'm sitting on the hills of Judea right now. Literally, the hill that gave us the name. You're looking towards the Mediterranean Sea. Gaza's way out there in the background. And the hatred is because of who we are. Jewish tradition and the Jewish rabbis and the Jewish Talmud and the Jewish everything deals a lot with how many fronds should be on the head, on the top of the sukkah. We're in the Feast of Tabernacles right now. Or how and where you should wash your hands before you go to pray and before you go to eat. And we deal with a lot. But as far as the hatred of the Jews, hatred in Hebrew is sin'ah. According to Jewish tradition, according to Talmud, according to our sages, the hatred for the Jews comes from Sinai. Sinai is Sinai, Mount Sinai. And there's a play on words here, but the Sin'ah, which is the hatred, comes from Sinai, which is where we became, and we took up the role of God's chosen people. Those two are together. The Sin'ah that we saw down through the ages, up and down, everywhere we went, that Sin'ah has been following us all the way to October 7, 2023, and all the way to the media that's going on here. That Sin'ah has been following us ever since Mount Sinai. That is who we are. And as a Jew, I'm saying there's nothing I can do about it. This is what we are destined. This is who we are. This is what we are. God's chosen people comes with a hatred, a deep hatred of who and what we are. We're not surprised. But as a Christian, I'm deeply disappointed. I'm deeply disappointed that some of the sin'ah is not only coming from our enemies, is not only coming from the people who hate us, is not only coming from the people who try to convince the world that they are going to replace us. It comes from our friends. It comes from my Christian friends. It comes from followers of Jesus who have decided that, one, the Bible said again and again and again and again, but we know better, and Jews are not God's chosen people. Jesus came and looked at the Jews that he grew up in and decided that he is going to open it up for everybody, and he is going to supersede or replace the Jews with the Christians. And I've been hearing that on social media, people who are not even religious, but a lot of people who are actually. And I'm hearing even some of my friends who are being very, very quiet about what's going on. The sin'ah is back. And today, I feel it very, very deeply on my soul. I feel it sitting very, very heavily on my soul. And what I'd like to say is, this is when we need the people that understand who and what the Jews are, the people who understand who and what God's chosen people are, to pray for us. Pray for my people. They have rebelled, they have looked away, but they have paid the price. And when David says, I know my descendants have rebelled against you, but you have not forsaken me. Pray that the Jewish people will understand that the peace they need right now, more than anything, is the Prince of Peace himself. Pray that they will see that light. There's an openness. There's a religious revival going on in Israel. There's a dynamic in Israel that is completely changed, but the war is still going on. And even here, I'm a little bit further away from Gaza, I can still hear the explosions over there. Pray for my people. That the sin'ah that we've been feeling and dealing with ever since Mount Sinai, the hatred, okay, will be transitioned into love. So that's the dynamic. That's the Balagan connection I needed to make today. I'm still in Israel. I will be for a while. We're going from place to place and connecting to different ministries that have needs here. So if you want to connect to any of the ministries that I'm talking about, check out GihonSprings.com or click on the QR code. It's either on this side or this side. I haven't figured out how to do this. If you want to connect to me, also, click on the same QR code. It goes to all my different channels. It is YouTube and Instagram and everything. And there's merchandise up if you want to buy some merchandise. And if you want to donate to Gihon Springs, it's down there at the bottom of that. And pray for me that I will overcome this deep sense of spiritual warfare that I'm in right now. Pray for Christy. She's back in the States and waiting for a new grandson. And pray for the peace of Jerusalem. We need the Prince of Peace here in Jerusalem more than anything. This is David Tal. This is a Balagan Connection. We started off on the balcony in Modi'in. We're finishing off on the hills of Judea. The sun is going down. And I hope that this is all going to be over soon, and that you will be able to come here and meet me on this hill as soon as possible. Hope to see you soon.